Hello fellow nerdmaids and nerdmaids-to-be, my name is Faith, and today I'm going to be talking about and clearing up some misconceptions about neoprene versus spandex tails. So as you know, I'm a big collector of fabric mermaid tails. I am the fabric mermaid tail queen, and most of my mermaid tails are made out of spandex. For this video, the tail I'll be using as an example is my mermaid cat shop tail. Now when swimming in a spandex tail, there's a couple things you want to keep in mind. The first is that the fabric is usually pretty thin, and you can kind of tear it up by getting holes and stuff if you don't have any form of protection on the tips. The second thing is that it's very light. Spandex tails are also pretty stretchy. This is how much stretch this tail has, and it has an elasticated waistband. Another thing about spandex tails is that they're very easy to take off. Depending on how tight the tail is, you're usually able to slide it down. In case you were wondering, this mermaid tail came with the Hydra monofin from Mermaid Cat Shop. I actually had a neoprene tail made with this monofin. The person who made this tail was just kind of prototyping it and beta testing, and I collaborated with her on the design. This isn't commercially available, just consider this to be a homemade tail, but what I'm going to be saying about this tail will pretty much stand true for any sort of neoprene tail. This was originally made for a Finis Tempo monofin, so we modified it a bit to fit my Hydra and added these Velcro straps so that it would stay in place a little more. First things first, this tail was made and altered to measurements that would fit me. Now this tail is made of 3mm thick neoprene, which is different than some other neoprene tails that I'll be talking about later. Neoprene doesn't have quite as much stretch as spandex. This is about how far the waistband stretches. This is how much stretch the body has. Not a whole lot. You can order neoprenes that have this, where it's a black base on the inside and a white fabric on top, and that's how we were able to get the pretty colors onto this design. For this tail, Permaset aqua paints were used. If you want to find out more about making tails, I highly recommend checking out Courtney Mermaid's YouTube channel. She actually inspired me to do my little merwall background here today, so that's why I'm not in front of my bed, also because all my tails are I keep on the floor. Now let's talk about the comparison of swimming with that same monofin between my spandex tail and my neoprene tail. The first thing is that my neoprene tail is very hard to get on. I can put on my Mermaid Cat Shop tail in probably about 20-30 seconds. My neoprene tail takes a couple minutes. The second thing is that because the neoprene is so tight and so thick, I don't get much drag in between my knees. It's weird, my Mermaid Cat Shop tail almost makes me feel and look a little bit bony, if that's the right word for it. Like, you can see my knees and you can see like my two legs because they're separate because of the design of the monofin. There's a little bit of drag as the water flows through the spandex in between my legs, which is something I've never been a fan of. But with my neoprene tail, it kind of encases my body really well, and I don't get that drag because it's thicker. Now another difference between my neoprene tail and my spandex tail is that neoprene, because it tightens to your body, it actually makes my legs stay together in the correct dolphin kick position, and I'm able to go a little bit faster than I thought I would. The downside to neoprene is that it is quite floaty, especially this thicker neoprene's 3mm. I thought I would have trouble getting down to the bottom of the pool, but because the monofin is so powerful, I didn't have a lot of issues, but it is quite a floaty tail, so I'm able to go up to the surface pretty well. Now, another difference is that this tail is quite a bit heavier. It's significantly more than a spandex tail. Another thing about neoprene tails is that they will keep you warm. If you remember a couple of videos back, my pool photo shoot, which is actually the first time I swam in this tail, that water, it was cold, but I was actually able to stay pretty warm in this tail. I wore my magic tail for another part of the photo shoot, and I immediately felt the difference between the spandex and the neoprene. There's no protection with spandex, but this one I was nice and toasty, as I was able to stay in the water a lot longer than the other mermaids because my bottom half was being kept quite insulated. Now another thing about the neoprene is that the scuffing isn't quite as visible. Now this might be because I did a bit of a darker shade here on the fluke tips. It's a little harder to tear up and peel compared to spandex. Now this tail is getting a little bit of damage. The maker of this tail told me to beat it up, so I have. I found that the damage in this one isn't quite as visible as well because it is a painted tail. I have some of the paint here, so see like these heel scuff marks? I can just paint over that again and again. You can't do that with a printed tail unless you're really talented. But I know lots of mermaids who've made their own mermaid tails with neoprene, and they really think it's a good investment. But Faith, I hear my little fishy saying, what about the finfuck neoprene tails? Let's talk about those, because they're slightly different than the neoprene tail I have. So in case you didn't know, Finfolk Productions has come out with a line of fabric tails. Pre-sale sold out, and people will be getting them in January. Right now they go for about $335 US. They have a thickness of 1mm neoprene, which is pretty thin compared to my tail. They include a side zipper for monofin removal. They recommend monofins with a short, stiff blade, such as the Finis Shooter or the Finis Foil. Other monofins have been tested in it, but we still don't know. I really want to get one with a Mahina, guys. Like, that's my dream right right there, finfolk with Mahina. Yes. For the designs, they currently have 8 options so far. There will be more coming out with more fluke styles and maybe even the option to create your own in the future. Now, Mermaid Nova, the Virginia Mermaid, has very graciously answered my questions, all my pressing technical questions about the finfolk fabric tails. So here we go. Shout out to her, she is amazing. The finfolk tails are made of 1mm neoprene, which is different from scuba fabric or neoprene. The material is like a rubber knit with a fabric layer over top to put the design on, similar to what my neoprene tail was made of, just a lot thinner, which is fine in the pictures. It doesn't really look like it's thick. It looks pretty thin. That's because it's made of 1mm of fabric. They'll definitely feel less hefty than a tail made out of a thicker neoprene, but probably just a little bit heavier than a spandex tail. Now, because it's a thinner neoprene, it won't be as buoyant or as insulating. If you're mermaiding where your core is exposed, you're not going to be that much warmer, but I find that it made a little bit of a difference. But with a 1mm fabric tail, it's probably not going to drastically increase your body temperature. When the 3 girls were modeling the tails, they said that they weren't that buoyant at all. They were able to sink and get neutral buoyancy in them, which is great. In my neoprene tail, it's a little harder for me to achieve neutral buoyancy as compared to a spandex tail. Other places where you can buy neoprene tails are Aqua Tails, as well as Otter Bay wetsuits. Aqua Tails has a couple different options for making a neoprene tail for you. You can either paint it yourself or they can paint one for you. I would suggest just looking at their website and shooting them an email if that's what you're interested in. Other tail makers that make neoprene tails are Not Swim Tails and Not Mermaid Inc. Kudos to this lovely mermaid named Jennifer. She has been super helpful in the making of this video, and I'm gonna clear some misconceptions about scuba fabrics. Now, most dumb people who are uneducated, like me, in regards to scuba, think scuba, wetsuit, neoprene, yes! Not quite, actually. That's a little bit of a lie. So you may have seen that Swim Tails has come out with these pro tails which fit the Mahina. They're for $298. They sometimes go on sale for a little bit less than $200. It's made of the SCUBA-knit fabric, and it's maybe about 1mm or 1.5 mm. I'm not entirely sure, they haven't specified. The design options, they have about 9 different ones. Many people have bought these tails and realized that they're not actually made of the same floaty, wetsuity smelling stuff. This model fin cover from FinFun, this is neoprene. The Swim Tails Pro Tails are not neoprene. On the website, they don't actually say neoprene, they say SCUBA-knit. Sure, it's a little better than spandex, it's thicker and has a slightly different stretch, basically just a thicker spandex tail. We all like thick tails, you know, you don't want to see your swimsuit underneath, but I feel like that's something that Swim Tails as well as Mermaid Inc. have not made clear and disappointed a lot of the consumers. Scuba was a fabric designed to mimic neoprene, but it's made of a much more basic composition. It's double knit, but made mostly out of polyester. Not like a rubber or a foam with a fabric layer. This is just a thick fabric. Now, I did find this really informative blog that talks about the whole nitty-gritties between neoprene and scuba, so I will link that in the description down below if you want to take a read at it. But basically, it ain't neoprene. Let's talk about the other mermaid tail company that has been a little bit confusing, which is Mermaid Inc. There's a review here if you want to watch it. They're based in Indonesia, and their tails are absolutely beautiful. They make them for both the Mahina and the Aquarius, include a side zipper for removal. It's a little pricey in US dollars. I priced it out, I think it's about $300 to $400 depending on what style you get. There's at least 10 options for just the Mahina, and you can also get them custom designed, which is really cool. And I've been eyeballing them for about 2.5 years, but have never really gotten the chance to purchase one just because shipping to Canada would be outrageous. As well, I didn't really want to invest $400 in a fabric tail. And it's a good thing that I haven't, because it's not made out of neoprene. It just says it's made out of high quality scuba material, which of course would make you think it's neoprene, but it's not. My mermaid friend Jennifer says it doesn't feel like wetsuit fabric, but it doesn't feel like swimsuit either. So if you want something that's maybe not as thin as spandex and maybe has a different feel, especially if you want to get a tail from Mahina, I would say sure, go for one of the Swim Tails ones or the Mermaid Tail Inks. I think that they both make beautiful tails, but just know that you are not getting neoprene. But a finfolk tail, that is made of a much thinner neoprene than what most people would buy to make their mermaid tails out of. So you're not going to be floaty, you're not going to be super insulated, but it is going to feel a little bit different and look cooler. So now you know, let's kind of talk about the market for these tails. Obviously, because people are giant suck-ups to finfolk and love their designs, they're gonna buy the neoprene tails because it's so pretty and so many cool mermaids have advertised them, and now they're the big shit. Myself included, but I couldn't get one because I'm so poor. Please click on the ads on my videos. Thanks! because these tails are a little bit thinner, I would say that it would probably make a half decent starter tail. If you're a pretty good swimmer and you've got a little bit more funds than $100, $200, maybe invest in one of those finfolk tails or a neoprene tail that you make for yourself. If you're going from spandex to neoprene, it's not going to be that big of a difference. You just have to adjust your swimming in regards to the monofin that you're using and the amount of drag that you have with your tail. But obviously these printed neoprene tails look fabulous and are gonna feel fabulous and everyone's gonna die. I don't think that they're comparable to getting a partial silicone tail. I just think that they're a really neat thing, and if you've got the money and you want a good step into mermaiding, they're probably going to be good quality, so I suggest investing in one. What about the one of those Mermaid ink or one of those swim tails? I would say that if you're looking for a slightly better tail for your mahina other than a magic tail or a homemade one, I would say that they're a decent start, especially if you started with like just a mahina and a homemade skin. I would say that they're definitely a huge upgrade, but you don't need to feel like it is the professional step just because they tell you to. Now you have to take my opinions with a grain of salt because I don't have any of these tails that I've talked about, but I did my research pretty well. Super big shout out to Jennifer and Hannah. They were very key in the making of this video, and I hope that I cleared up some misconceptions for you guys, as well as explained a couple things in the market of neoprene tails. So thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Comment below any thoughts you have about neoprene or scuba knit tails. I'd really love to hear what you guys have to say. Subscribe if you haven't already to see more of my face or my mermaid tails, whatever weird thing I get up to next. Help me unlock 5,000 subscribers because we're gonna be doing a giveaway, so stay tuned for that. I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see you later. Bye! Now, Mermaid Nova, the new